Distance on the street all the way down. So
Good afternoon. The meeting of the MDC Hearing Examiner for July 28th, 2022 will now come to order. Before I start with the rules of procedure, I have a couple of announcements. If you do have cell phones or any kind of devices on, please turn them off. If you need to have any conversation, please go out in the hall to do that because the sound carries forward. The final announcement is I need to leave by 5:15. The reason I'm saying that is at this point we have a really long docket. So there's always a possibility that we will have to finish before the docket's done because, as I said, I do have to leave by 5:15. The hearing today will be conducted in accordance with the rules of procedure of the Metropolitan Development Commission. Each party will have 15 minutes for their original presentation. We will hear the staff recommendation, and then each party will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. Any party who is dissatisfied with the recommendation made today has an automatic right to an appeal. The dissatisfied party must file the appeal with the Department of Metropolitan Development within 5 business days. Additional notice of the appeal is also required to be made to the individuals requiring notice by the MDC Rules of Procedure. All petitions for which I make a recommendation to the Metropolitan Development Commission regarding approval or denial will be forwarded to the Commission meeting on August 17th, 2022. Any commitments agreed to must be submitted to staff no later than Wednesday, August 10th, 2022. We will now begin with special requests, including withdrawals and continuances, and I will first ask Nancy to read into the record any of those special requests of which we are aware, and then I will open it up to the audience for special requests.
Thank you, Madam Hearing Examiner. We have petitions that have been requested to be continued to the August 11th, 2022 meeting. 2022 ZON 060 and 2022 VAR 006 amended. These are at various addresses in the 86, 88, and 8900 block of South Arlington Avenue, 56 and 6000 blocks of East County Line Road, and 8700 Coombs Road, Franklin Township, Council District 25.
And is there anyone here on behalf of that continuance for companion petitions 2022 ZON 060 and VAR 006? Mr. Toohey.
Good afternoon. Brian Toohey. My address is 50 South Meridian. Yes, it's supposed to be continued to August 11th, but the remonstrator's lawyer has a vacation, long scheduled vacation, and so he asked if we would consent to move it to the 25th, and I think that's fine with staff, and we agreed with that.
Okay, and as a reminder, I will not be here on October 25th. August 25th, Jim Holland will be here then. Is there anyone else here today on those companion petitions with various addresses on South Arlington, East County Line Road, and 8700 Combs Road that wants to comment on that continuance request? Okay, and Kathleen, any comments?
Thank you, Judy. Staff would have no objection to the continuance of 2022 ZON 060 and 2022 VAR 006 to the August, excuse me, 25th hearing, and that I believe that notice has already been sent for that variance.
Is that true?
That's true. It went out as if the hearing was going to be on August 11th because that was the date of the first continuance, and then we learned about the vacation.
Okay.
And so we have not set out notice for the August 25th date.
Okay, and Kathleen, do you think it's necessary to have notice reset for the new date?
At this point, no.
Okay. All right, that was my leaning.
We met with the Franklin Township Civic League and told them about the 25th also.
Wonderful.
So, yeah, I think it's pretty well known.
Okay, so then I will continue companion petitions 2022 ZON 060 and VAR 006 to the August 25th hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We also had a request to continue 2022 ZON 063 to the August 11th, 2022 meeting. This was at 4720 Kingsway Drive, Washington Township, Council District 9.
Okay, Mr. Rooney, did you want to comment on this request?
Good afternoon. Pat Rooney, office at 1638 Shelby Street, Suite 101. And we would also like to add a waiver of 2 days because there was an issue with the signage. With now it being continued, it shouldn't really be an issue, but we wanted to go ahead and be on record.
And is that for the sign only and not the written notice?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Is anyone else here on 2022 ZON 063 at 4720 Kingsway Drive? Okay, and Kathleen, any comments?
Thank you, Judy. Staff would have no objection to the continuance of 2022 ZON 063 to the August 11th meeting and would have no objection to the waiver of 2 days for the sign posting.
Okay, thank you. So I will reduce the notice period for the sign only from 23 days to 21 days, and I will continue 2022 ZON 063 to the August 11th hearing. Thank you.
And I actually have one more special request. Do you want me to do it now or come back up?
If you wouldn't mind just staying close by. Thank you.
Thanks.
We now have a number of petitions that have been requested or have filed automatic continuances to the August 25th, 2022 meeting. First, we have a set of companions, 2022 CZN 808, CBR 808, and CBC 808 at 1402, 1416, 1432, and 1438 East Washington Street, and 1517 and 26 North Arsenal Avenue, Center Township, Council District 17.
Okay, and this continuance is for cause. Mr. Kingan, did you have any comments on the request?
Thank you, Ms. Withdrawals. David Kingan with offices at 618 East Market Street. This, we didn't make a request yesterday to continue this. There are several variances. You can see we're down to just one issue, and we need to meet with DPW and staff of DMD. And so we've asked for a request to continue this without additional notice to your August 25th hearing.
Okay, and is there anyone here on the companion petitions 2022 CZN, CVR, and CVC 808, various addresses on East Washington and North Arsenal? Okay, and Keith, any comments from staff?
Staff is in support of the continuance to August 25th.
Okay, I will continue companion petitions 2022 CZN, CVR, and CVC 808 to the August 25th hearing.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. King, if you can stand by, it looks like we have a few more for you.
Yes, we now have 2022 CZN 812 and 2022 CVR 812 at 3602 South Harding Street, Perry Township, Council District 20.
Yes, Ms. Withdrawals, I think we reported to you last time that we were working on adding some additional acreage. We have gotten the consent to do that, and so we need to.
Excuse me, if anyone needs to have conversation, please go out in the hall to hear that. To have that, the sound carries up here. Thank you.
So that we have added parcel to that petition, and so therefore we would request that this be continued to your August 25th hearing, and that would be with additional notice.
And do you think that's sufficient time?
We do.
Okay. And again, just to reiterate, I will not be here at the hearing on August 25th. Jim Holland will be here as hearing examiner. Is there anyone else here on companion petitions 2022 CZN and CVR 812 at 3602 South Harding Street? Okay, Keith, any comments?
No, staff is in support of this continuance to August 25th, and that is with notice because additional property is being added to the request.
Okay, and that allows sufficient time for notice?
I believe it will.
Okay, so I'm going to continue companion petitions 2022 CZN and CVR 812 to the August 25th hearing, and that will be with notice.
Thank you.
Also, we have 2022 CZN 828 and 2022 CPL 828 at 4514 East 79th Street, Washington Township, Council District 3.
Again, it's Withdrawals, David Kingham with offices at 6180 East Market Street. This is a petition that was continued by Councilor Boots. We have met with the property owners that he had requested that we meet with on the site. We're working on some commitments with that. We also have some issues with the septic tank that we need to resolve, and so we have requested that this be continued to your August 25th hearing, and that would be without additional notice.
Okay, and again, do you feel like that's sufficient time?
We do.
Okay, is there anyone else here on companion petitions 2022 CZN and CPL 828 at 4514 East 79th Street? Okay, and Allison, comments on that from staff?
Thank you, Madam Hearing Examiner. This is the first request by the applicant, so staff is not opposed to the continuance without notice.
Thank you. So I will continue companion petitions 2022 CZN and CPL 828 to the August 25th hearing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Petitions 2022 CZN 832 and 2022 CVR 832. Timely automatic continuance was filed for these at 6340 and 6380 Rockville Road, Wayne Township, Council District 15.
Okay, so this was an automatic continuance, which means it was filed in a timely fashion. So any additional comments on the automatic continuance for 2022 CZN and CVR 832 at 6340 and 6380 Rockville Road?
No, we were aware of it and we're fine with it.
Okay. Anyone else here on those petitions? All right, Kathleen, any additional comments?
Thank you, Judy. Staff would have no additional comments on 2022 CZN 832 and CVR 832. This would just require your acknowledgement.
Okay, so I will acknowledge the automatic continuance of companion petitions 2022 CZN and CVR 832.
We also have an automatic continuances filed for 2022 CZN 837 and 2022 CVR 837 at 1450 East 16th Street and 1607 North Arsenal Avenue, Center Township, Council District 17.
Okay, it looks like this was filed by a registered neighborhood organization. I don't know if Mr. Birch is here to comment on that automatic continuance request. Okay, or anyone else on that, on the East 16th and North Arsenal. Okay, Jeff, any additional comments?
Yes, just one additional comment, Ms. First Hall. This petition was continued also with notice. It was the variance petition was amended, so notice was sent out for that date, August 25th.
Great. Okay, so I am going to acknowledge the automatic continuance of companion petitions 2022 CZN and CVR 837 to August 25th.
Thank you, Madam Hearing Examiner. We also have an automatic continuance for 2022 CAP 838 and 2022 CVR 838 at 4445 Decatur Boulevard, Decatur Township, Council District 22.
Thank you, Nancy. This was also filed by a registered neighborhood organization. Is Mr. Rubinowitz here or anyone else that wants to comment on that automatic continuance request at 4445 Decatur Boulevard? Okay, and Kathleen, any requests?
Thank you, Judy. Staff would have no further comments except to say that this just would require your acknowledgement.
All right, I will acknowledge the automatic continuance of companion petitions 2022 CAP and CVR 838 to the August 25th hearing. Sounds like that's going to be a busy hearing as well.
And our last automatic continuance is 2022 CZN 839 and 2022 CVR 839 at 4901 and 4919 South Emerson Avenue, Franklin Township, Council District 18.
And looks like this was filed on behalf of the petitioner. Is anyone here to speak on the automatic continuance at 4901 and 4919 South Emerson Avenue? Keith, any comments?
Staff has no additional comments.
Okay, I will acknowledge the automatic continuance of companion petitions 2022 CZN and CVR 839 to the August 25th hearing.
And we have a set of companions, petitions, 2022 CZN 840, 2022 CVR 840, and 2022 CVC 840, that have requested a continuance for cause to the August 25th meeting at 5436 Brookville Road, Warren Township, Council District 12.
Mr. Kingan.
Yes, Ms. Wurtal, again, David Kingham with offices at 6180 East Market Street. We're scheduled to meet before the Irvington Community Council in August, and do believe that we will be more prepared to move forward on the August 25th hearing.
Okay. Is there anyone else here on the companion petitions at 5436 Brookville Road? Okay, and Allison, any comments from staff?
Yes, thank you, Madam Hearing Examiner. Staff is supportive of the continuance. I would just note that if we discussed possibly amending the petition, so if it is amended, it will need additional notice, but otherwise we're okay with continuing without notice.
Great, thank you. So I will continue companion petitions 2002 CZN, CVR, and CVC 840 to the August 25th hearing, and that if amendment requires notice, then it would be with notice.
Thank you.
And we also have 2022 CZN 842 amended and 2022 CVR 842 at 6544 Ferguson Street, Washington Township, Council District 2.
Again, Ms. Wurtal, David Kingham with offices at 6180 East Market Street. This petition is that we are requesting that it be continued to the 8/25/22 hearing date. That this petition has been vetted by the Rotorua Village Association, and they're in full support of it. We did, at the request of staff, amend it from an MU2 to an MU1 request. We have sent out notice for that, and so we're prepared. We believe we'll be prepared to move forward on the August 25th hearing date.
And I'm sorry, did you say you already sent out new notice, or you're going to?
It's in the process.
Okay. Okay. All right. Anyone else here on companion petitions 2022 CZN and CVR 842 at 6544 Ferguson Street? Okay. And Kathleen, any comments from staff?
Thank you, Judy. Staff would have no objection to the continuance, and I think it should be with notice of 2022 CZN 842 and CVR 842.
Okay, thank you. So I will continue companion petitions 2022 CZN and CVR 842 to the August 25th hearing, and that's with notice.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have a petition that has been requested to be continued to the September 15th, 2022 meeting, which is petition 2022 ZON 027 amended at 7250 North Keystone Avenue, Washington Township, Council District 2.
And is there anyone here on that petition today for 7250 North Keystone? Okay. So this petition has been continued a number of times, including when we had heard the petition, and then on my own cause I continued it to see if anything could be worked out. And it's been on the docket for a while, so I am going to make this the final continuance granted. Kathleen, I don't know if you have had the chance to share that with the petitioner.
I have. In fact, I shared that with the petitioner, and he is in fact the landowner,
Yes.
the property owner, and I sent him an email today saying this is going to be the last continuance that would be granted.
Okay, all right. So I am going to continue 2022 ZON 0271 final time to the September 15th hearing. Do you think that needs to be with notice, Kathleen?
No, no, because if it's amended, presumably they're going to decrease the amount of acreage, and so that would not require notice.
Okay. All right. I think, unless we've had something added, I think that's the last continuance or special request of which we're aware. So then I will ask for the audience if there are any special requests. So these would be continuance requests, withdrawals, anything like that. And if you could come forward one at a time, please, give your name and address. Hello.
Hey, hello, thank you. I'm Brian Mowry, City County Councilor for District 25. I am here to request the, let's see, 2022 ZON 051 to be continued until the August 25th meeting. I spoke with the developer and he was checking with his client. So as far as I know, we're good for that on both ends, but there's a few things that still need to be worked out, and I think continued conversation of this project would be very, very beneficial.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mowry. Is there anyone else here? First of all, is Mr. Calderon here for the petitioner? I didn't see you hiding back there. If I could have your comments, and then I'll ask if there are any other interested.
Thank you, Ms. Wertz Hall. Joe Calderon, 11 South Meridian, Indianapolis, representing the petitioner in this companion case. We were preparing to go forward and received an email, a copy of an email that Kathy Burton from the Civic League had sent to Keith with her understanding that Councilor Mowry was going to seek out a continuance. We have all the respect and would appreciate the opportunity to have additional discussions with the counselor and the remonstrators, so we are not going to argue against the continuance request made by the counselor.
And that's for the August 25th hearing?
August 25th is going to be a crowded day, but yeah.
But it won't be my day, so. No. All right, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience, I'm assuming we have some remonstrators here, that want to speak to this continuance request? So again, I don't want to hear the merits of the case, it's just the continuance request itself.
We support Councilor Mowry's request for continuance.
Okay. Yeah, and your name and address, sir.
Peter Racher, Blue Shadley Racher and Braun, 1346 North Delaware Street in Indianapolis.
Okay.
I don't get over here very often.
That's okay. That's okay. And so I know we do have some people that made the trip down here. If you could all, anyone that was here for these petitions, if you could just raise your hands. Okay. So it looks like, do we have about 20? Does that sound about right? I get reflection on the glass.
About 40 people, I believe.
40, okay. So I just wanted to have part of the record that we did have a group down here this afternoon. I understand it's an inconvenience and you might not be able to make it back on August 25th. But since you did make an effort to come down today, I just wanted to put that on the record. Are there any objections to continuing to August 25th? Okay. And Keith, any comments from staff?
Staff was prepared to go forward today, but we have no objection to the continuance.
Okay. So again, I appreciate everyone coming down. I always prefer that there are continued discussions so you can see if you can come to an agreement rather than having to, come and oppose each other. So I am going to continue companion petitions 2022 ZON 051 and 2022 VAR 003 to the August 25th hearing. Again, I applaud you and I encourage you to have continued discussions between now and then. And if you could, since we still have a long docket, if you could exit as quietly as possible, I would appreciate that. Are there other special requests from the audience? Any requests for continuance, withdrawal? Yes, sir.
Hi, Sean Jones, 530 East Ohio Street. Want to request an expedited docket for 2022 ZON 083.
Okay, and that's actually already on the expedited portion of the docket.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other special requests from the audience? Yes, Mr. Rooney.
Good afternoon, Pat Rooney, office at 1638 Shelby Street, Suite 101. And this is with respect to 2022 ZON 078 at 8965 Rockville Road. And we would just request a continuance to the 825 hearing.
Okay, and Mr. Rooney, have you had any contact with any neighbors or neighborhood groups or anything like that?
I have not.
Okay, and I'm asking that just because I want to make sure that anybody would be kept in the loop on that. And you said August 25th, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anyone here on 2022 ZON 078 at 8965 Rockville Road? Okay, and Kathleen, any staff comments on that?
Thank you, Judy. Staff is prepared to go forward, but would have no objection since this is the first request for continuance to 2022 ZON 078 to the August 25th hearing.
Well, thank
that
you,
would be without additional notice.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. I will continue 2022 ZON 078 to the August 25th hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other special requests from the audience? Any requests from staff? Okay, so we will now consider the petitions on the expedited portion of the docket. These are petitions where staff has recommended approval of the request, and staff has not been made aware of any opposition to the petitions. If there are remonstrators present for a particular petition or members of the public that object to a petition being recommended for approval or being approved, we will hear testimony before making a decision. Nancy, would you please read into the record all petitions to be expedited?
Yes, thank you, Madam Hearing Examiner. The petitions scheduled to be expedited are 2022 APP 009 at 605 South High School Road, Wayne Township, Council District 22. 2022 ZON 081 at 711 South High School Road, Wayne Township, Council District 22. And 2022 ZON 083 at 1751 South Lawndale Avenue, Wayne Township, Council District 22.
And thank you, Nancy. Would the petitioners for the three expedited petitions that were just called, please stand and be sworn in?
Yes, thank you. And raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury to tell the truth and nothing but the truth? Say, I do. I do. Thank you.
For petition 2022 APP 009 at 605 South High School Road, if the petitioner could come forward and just let me know if there are any additional comments. Hi, name and address.
Ben Jackson, 1200 Madison. I'm with Indy Parks. I have no additional comments.
All right, thank you. And Keith, any additional comments on this petition?
Staff has no additional comments.
Okay, so I am going to recommend approval of 2022 APP 009. That will be heard by the Metropolitan Development Commission on August 17th. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then at 711 South High School Road, 2022 ZON 081. Afternoon.
Hi, Sarah Walters, 1073 Oliver Avenue. No additional comments.
All right. And Kathleen, any additional comments on 2022 ZON 081?
Thank you, Judy. Staff would have no further comments on this petition.
Okay, then I am going to recommend approval of 2022 ZON 081. That will be heard by the Metropolitan Development Commission on August 17th.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then finally, on Lawndale, Mr. Jones for 2022 ZON 083.
Hello. I have no additional comments.
All right. And Mr. Jones, staff is recommending approval subject to 2 commitments in the written staff report. Are you in agreement with those?
Yes.
Okay. And Keith, any additional comments from staff?
Staff has no additional comments, although because this came late to the expedited docket, I wondered if you would like to just see if there's anyone in the audience for this petition.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience for 2022 ZON 083 at 1751 South Lawndale Avenue? All right. Thank you, Keith. So, subject to the 2 commitments in the written staff report being put in proper form, I am going to recommend approval of 2022 ZON 083. That will be heard by the Metropolitan Development Commission on August 17th. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now hear the petitions on the petitions scheduled for public hearing docket. Just as a reminder, the petitioners have 15 minutes for their presentation. The remonstrators have 15 minutes. If there's more than one remonstrator or petitioner, make sure you plan your time so everybody gets to talk. Staff gives their comments, and then there's 5 minutes rebuttal for petitioners, 5 minutes rebuttal for remonstrators. Nancy, if you could call the first case, please.
Yes, it's petition 2022 ZON 062 at 6900 East 21st Street, approximate address, Warren Township, Council District 19. Top Investments LLC by Patrick Rooney, requesting a rezoning of 10.523 acres from the C4 and D4 FWFF classifications to the C7 FWFF district to provide for a truck, heavy equipment repair facility, and truck trailer parking. Will all those intending to testify on this petition this afternoon, either for or against, please stand now and come forward to be sworn in. Anybody else going to speak on this? Madam, are you here in remonstrance or in support? Okay, that's fine. Please raise your right hand, everybody. Do you, go ahead, ma'am, raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury to tell the truth and nothing but the truth? Say, I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Pat Rooney, office at 1638 Shelby Street, Suite 101. Here on behalf of Petitioner, Top Investments LLC, with respect to petition 2022 ZON 062 for the property commonly known as 6900 East 21st Street. As further described in the petition and depicted in the site plan and renderings in your handout, the petitioner plans to redevelop the site for a truck and trailer repair shop for the use on petitioner's personal fleet of approximately 50 trucks and 100 trailers. The petitioner would only anticipate 5 trucks or trailers being repaired on any given day, and said repairs taking place during normal business hours Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. All repairs will be completed inside the repair shop, and all repairs will be on company trucks and trailers only. There will be 3 to 5 mechanics in the repair shop and 3 to 5 employees in the office. Petitioner will keep the existing trees and vegetation in the setback areas and add trees and landscaping in the setback areas. For additional visual and noise buffer, petitioner will install an 8-foot by 8-inch cement wall along the western and southern edges of the property and an 8-foot privacy fence along the eastern boundary of the property. The traffic route will be going east on 21st Street to Shadeland and I-70, so they will not be entering or passing by any residential areas. There's over 100 feet between...
Excuse me. If you need to have conversation, go out in the hall to do it, please. Thank you.
There's over 100 feet between the petitioner's building and parking lot and any adjacent buildings, and there's over 200 feet between the petitioner's parking lot and Pleasant Run Creek. The petitioner would be willing to execute any reasonable commitments if any were requested by the hearing examiner or staff. With that, please let me know if you have any questions or concerns or commitments that you would like to see.
Mr. Rooney. A couple questions. So you said that the trucks that would be worked on are only part of this particular company, correct? So it's not they're not bringing in trucks or trailers from other businesses, is
It wouldn't
that right?
be open to the general public. It would
Okay.
just be for their company.
Okay. Do they have a location somewhere else currently?
Yes, there's a couple partners, and they have a location at, it's right by Harding and Morris.
So is this a second location, or are they wanting to relocate?
They would relocate to this location once the construction was completed.
Okay. Were you contacted by any neighbors?
No, no actual neighbors, just the WTDA, which we met with them a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and I think, and they,
Opposed.
and they sent an email. Okay. So other than Warren Township Development Association, you were not contacted by anyone else, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Did you have any other testimony, or is there anyone
I
else?
was gonna wait for my rebuttal time.
Oh, okay. All right. And you had no one else that wanted to speak in
Correct.
support? Okay. All right. Thank you. And remonstrators, please. If you could come up and state your name and address, please.
Hi, thank you. Do I need to restate the...
Just your name and address.
Just name, okay. Cool. My name is Leslie Schulte, and I am president of Community Heights Neighborhood Organization. Community Heights Neighborhood Organization is split between zip codes 46219 and 46218, and 46218 has the unfortunate distinguishment of having the lowest life expectancy of any zip code in the 9-county area. When we saw this petition, we were concerned about the air quality and traffic due to increased traffic in a neighborhood that already struggles with air pollution. I would ask that, or what I'd like to ask for is that this petition either go to continuance so we can have time to have a conversation with the developer, or be denied. I guess, just that.
And so, Ms. Schulte, had you spoken with the petitioner before?
I have not before this.
Okay. So normally, when I was asking for continuances, that's when you would have done that. And I don't know if maybe you came in late.
Oh, yes.
And I know this process is not, not everyone has gone through this before. Let me go ahead and ask Mr. Rooney his opinion on the continuance. And also, Keith, can you remind me? Oh, so it was automatically continued by a registered neighborhood organization. Was that Warren Township, or do you remember?
My recollection is that it was Warren Township, but I don't want to swear to that.
Okay, and so I'm going to ask Nancy to check on that. And then there was only one other continuance prior to that, it looks like.
Yes, there was an
Because
earlier
notice-
continuance to provide for proper notice.
Okay, okay. And then, while Nancy's looking for that, Mr. Rooney, if you wouldn't mind commenting on the continuance request.
The previous continuance was WTDA.
Thank you.
And we would be okay with another continuance to meet with this neighborhood association and I'm going to be here on the 11th or the 25th, so either one would be fine.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rooney. I appreciate your cooperation. Keith, do you have any comments on continuing?
Staff would be supportive of a continuance.
Okay, so Okay, so Nancy confirmed, as Mr. Rooney just did as well, that the automatic continuance was filed by Warren Township Development Association. So we know that the August 25th hearing is, or the docket is already very full. Ms. Schulte, do you feel like, and you know, what I try to do is make any kind of inconvenience as minimal as possible. So do you feel like a 2-week continuance would be enough to get together? That would be August 11th?
Yes, that would be perfect. We have a neighborhood meeting in between then, and that
Okay.
would give us an opportunity to have a conversation.
Okay, wonderful. Is there anyone else here on 2022 ZON 062? All right. And again, I appreciate everybody's cooperation on this. A little bit unorthodox to do it this way, but you know, we want to try to accommodate everybody. So I am going to continue 2022 ZON 062 to the August 11th hearing so that there can be time for discussion between the petitioner and Community Heights Neighborhood Association. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Okay, then we are ready for West Washington Street, it looks like.
Our next petition scheduled for public hearing is 2022 ZON 071 at 7820 West Washington Street, Wayne Township, Council District 22. The petitioner is Paige Darlene Jensen, requesting a rezoning of 0.53 acre from the DA and C5 district to the C7 district to legally establish a towing business, truck rental, and automobile repair. Will all those intending to testify on this petition this afternoon, either for or against, please come forward and raise your right hand to be sworn in at this time. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury to tell the truth and nothing but the truth? Say, I do.
I do.
Thank you.
So do we have a petitioner for this? Petitioner for 2022 ZON 071 at 7820 West Washington Street. Okay. Kathleen, any correspondence with Ms. Jensen?
No, I have not heard from her at all.
Okay. Mr. Tui, if you would come forward and just for the record, give us your information. Just your name and address and who you're representing. I think that'll be sufficient, and then we'll figure out what to do.
Thank you, Madam Hearing Examiner. My name is Brian Tui. My address is 50 South Meridian. I represent the Indianapolis Airport Authority. Here with me today is the Director of Properties of the Indianapolis Airport Authority, Eric Anderson, and they are opposed to this request for rezoning.
Okay. And it's my understanding you had a presentation for that.
I do.
Had you been in contact with Ms. Jensen?
I have not, other than when we filed the continuance.
Okay. And was there any response to the continuance?
I've not to me, perhaps Kathleen.
Okay. Kathleen, any?
No, I have not heard from her. I did, when this was first filed and discussed within the planning meeting, let her know what staff's position was going to be. Did that via email. I've not heard anything from her.
Okay. My inclination is to continue this for 60 days. What date is that going to be, Nancy? In September? Okay.
September 29th.
Okay. Kathleen, any objections to that date?
No, staff would have no objections to that.
Okay. Mr. Dewey, does that work with your calendar?
What date would that be?
It's September 29th.
I think that will be fine. That will be fine. Because I know your next hearing date, you're not going to be here, but it's going to be very crowded.
Yeah.
And I think that will be fine.
And it just gives us a little longer to figure out if they're even proceeding. But this is a pending violation, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Okay.
I think I think there's actually 11 violations.
Yeah.
So is that a problem then to continue it that long?
Well, staff would like to see it, yes, because of the pending violations, because of the number of those.
Okay. So is it better then to just continue it for 2 weeks?
Why don't we do that? And I will, if I don't get a response via email, I will call her.
Okay. Mr. Tui, does that work for you?
Is that the...
August 11th?
I believe that does work. And I think that'd be preferred, actually.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. All right. So because the petitioner did not show up, I am going to continue 2022 ZON 071 to the August 11th hearing.
In the unlikely event that the petitioner does not show up at the August 11th date, on behalf of the remonstrator, I will likely make a request to have the petition withdrawn then.
Okay. Kathleen, how many? Oh, so it was automatically continued once? Is that the only?
No, this would be the first continuance.
It said there was a timely automatic continuance.
I think there was, that's right, there was a timely automatic continuance.
Oh, that's right,
filed,
I'm sorry, it was,
yeah.
Mr. Tui had
Okay.
filed that.
All right. Yeah, and no promises, but I understand where you're coming from.
No, I understand no promises. I just didn't want to surprise you on the 11th.
You can't surprise me.
Well, we'll see.
Right? Uh-oh, that's a challenge. Okay, so I am going to continue 2022 ZON 071 to the August 11th hearing. Kathleen will reach out to the petitioner and we'll figure out if they intend to go forward or what we need to do with this to solve the issues one way or the other.
That's fine. And,
okay.
You know,
yes, thank you.
All right.
If it works better for you not to go, if you want to go the first time in September, that's okay with us too.
I think we might as well push it. I think you're right. We might as well just push it along. So
yes,
I had forgotten about the violations when I made my first comment. So
yep. Thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Let's see if we're actually going to hear a case today. Nancy, if you could call the next case, please.
2022 ZON 077 at 3653 Carson Avenue, approximate address, Perry Township, Council District 21. Janet Jett requesting rezoning of 0.57 acre from the D4 district to the C3 district to provide for the expansion of an existing restaurant.
Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Janet Jett, 4020 Terra Drive, Indianapolis 46237.
May I swear in everyone of you, or is there anyone here that is in remonstrance to this petition?
No, just me. I have some questions.
All right. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury to tell the truth and nothing but the truth? Say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Yes, you may proceed.
No, thank you. The recommendations here, and it appears that you all have approved it with these certain recommendations. A 40-foot half right-of-way should be dedicated to the frontage of Carson as per the request of the Department of Public Works. Now, is this right-of-way easement, that's me up there on the screen, looks like an underground easement? Can they put another driving lane in there? Because there's just not enough room to give. Now, I want to say in 73, as I've researched this business, the original Bob Ransdale sold to the city of Indianapolis 40 foot from the center line, correct? Okay, that gets over to, because Carson's an angle, and so that gets over to about where the dumpster used to sit, or the grease trap thing, which limits the ability to go around the building if anything would be needed done. And I know kind of by the drawing that the engineers drawed up, it's kind of hard to, I've been there 40 some years, 41. And when you live it every day, you can see what can be done and what can't be done. Sidewalks, if there'd have been any way to put them in, I'd have done it. Because it's aggravating, but there's so many utility poles and ditches, there's just, unless you can wrap a sidewalk around a utility pole, I'm not sure how that would work. Okay, and it says that the access to the south driveway should be removed. Well, if I remove that, I'm cutting off access to my front door. All I want to do is add some more refrigeration onto the back of the building, just extend what I've got. That way, instead of trucks coming in 2 or 3 times a week for deliveries, I can have one truck come once a week, drop off, come through the back door, unload, less gas, less emissions, less everything. It's just more or less a semi, because the building's so old when it's built, which I love the history of it. My grandkids are the original owner's great-grandchildren. I'm just needing some way to make it less work, less, work smarter.
And Ms. Jett, so what I'm hearing you say, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you're not in agreement with the commitments requested by the staff. Is that correct?
It's not possible.
Okay. So had you spoken with Kathleen, the planner, about this?
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that you had had that conversation.
Yes, and it was nice to meet you, Kathleen. She's helped me a lot, except I would ask questions, but I never got an explanation. Just like a 90-degree angle, which I was kind of like, well, it don't make no sense. But anyways, let me talk to my paving company. He said, you're on, Carson's an angle street. You can't 90-degree a driveway off of an angle. And I was like, yeah, I know. I thought about maybe she meant national, but she said Carson, and if Carson's going this way, I'm not sure how that would work. Anybody in out here know about angles?
Okay. So again, just to make sure that I'm clear, of the 3 commitments requested by staff, you're not willing to agree to any of those. Is that correct?
I'm willing if the utility company will bury all them utilities and we can put in a sidewalk, that would be absolutely awesome. That would be amazing. But you've got 2 utility poles in a ditch. You've got water that comes up there if there's really bad rains that comes out of the ditch into my parking lot. So that would mean that the utilities would put in more, drainage, because you got more sidewalks, you got more runoff. But if you put in bigger drains, I guess, and the city would bury the utilities, there might be a place for sidewalks. I think they're beautiful. But it's not there. I mean, you could maybe put a 20-foot section in, but you'd have to stop, go out on the road, around a utility pole, get back on the sidewalk, go about 20 feet, go around another one, get back out on the road to get back on the other one. It's just kind of the way it's set up there. And now the easement, as long as it's underground easement, I'm okay with it. But if they can take then I've got no access to you're wanting to take the front. And if I give you 40 feet on the backside, you're going to take my back. I got no way in, or a one-way in and a one-way out. Which, when you're a delivery pickup service, that's not. I mean, if I can talk to an architect or my engineer and see if he can draw this up and explain it better.
So, did you try to do that before the hearing?
Well, like I said, Kathleen, she said something about the angle street. Well, you can't get a 90-degree angle on a 90-degree angle, I don't think. I've tried to figure out how to do that, and even the paving company says you can't on that one. The first I had read about this, getting rid of the south driveway, which comes in for my customers coming into my drivers to come in. The back driveway that I just went on those 2 lots was basically for trucks. Employee parking would be okay in the back, but just for semis to come around the building and drop off, we're just really tight on freezer space and refrigerator space. And I was just trying to get in more refrigeration, less deliveries per week, store more.
Okay, so let me hear staff comments, and then I'm going to figure out what the best way is to.
I appreciate it.
To handle this, okay?
I do, I appreciate it, because I'm having trouble myself.
No. All right, Kathleen, staff comments, please.
Thank you, Judy. As you will know from the staff report, staff is recommending approval, but it's subject to those three commitments. The first two were requested by the Department of Public Works, the dedication of right-of-way along the frontage of Carson Avenue, and also if, as the site plan indicates, the maximum width, well, let me back up. The maximum width for a driveway in a commercially zoned district is 36 feet wide. Based upon the drawing that was submitted, that driveway would be almost double that. That's why staff believes and confirmed this with the Department of Public Works that southern access drive would be closed in order to keep the maximum width of that drive to be 36 feet wide.
And I thought the back driveway was only 30 feet wide. Yeah, I don't know where you got the double 36. By the drawing, it shows 30 feet. Right. I can't really see it back here, but there where the arrows are going back and forth onto Carson on the left-hand side. I mean, those are going back and forth, but that ain't like two vehicles crossing. They can just either come in one way or out the other according to how traffic goes, but that right there says 30 feet, don't it?
Well, the existing drive there is south of the new drive, and the new drive that they would be installing with this would be, and I said approximately, it would bring it to almost double from what is existing now.
That's on two different lots, though. No, it's not that. I mean, now that I've put the lots together, I guess you consider it one lot, but that's a different address coming in on 10 different utilities and everything. Well, if you took the 40 feet and come back, and you could use one driveway to come in, you would be hitting the corner of the building, and where the front door is in the building, if I did try to do something like that, I would be afraid for pedestrian safety, because if you're coming in and out, with a pizza, you're not looking, kids are coming in and out, somebody would get ran over. Like I say, that back one is just for drop-off, deliver, more just supplies instead of dealing with the front door.
So,
and it is addressed to, and it's set up wrong, really. It's addressed to Carson, but the front door is facing National.
Okay. So, this hearing is not the best place to try to negotiate this, because I think, for one thing, it's really hard to see what we're talking about. So, I guess I would have a couple of options to offer. I can either continue this so that you can talk to your architect, engineer, whatever, and see what kind of adjustments could be made to the site plan.
Per the recommendations?
Yes.
And who would
because as Kathleen has said, the staff's recommending approval, but it's subject to those three commitments.
Okay.
The other option, I can go ahead and make a recommendation today, but I can tell you I'm going to recommend denial because I don't feel like you have thoroughly explored what the staff has recommended. If I recommend denial, then you can appeal and try to get something worked out between now and the commission hearing. My opinion, but it's up to you, my opinion is it would be better to continue and let you figure out with your engineer and then talk to Kathleen how you can go forward. It may be that you still can't agree to any of those commitments, but I don't feel like you've explored the option fully.
Well,
right now.
I'm not understanding either. And that's why I said, I don't know who to talk to. I've asked Kathleen about certain things, and I was like, well, you know, what do I do? Who do I talk to?
Okay.
And I've got no recommendations back. In the Department of Public Works, who do I talk to?
And so did Y Engineering do your site plan?
Yes.
And you know, this printing is so small, I can't even tell.
understand.
Did they do it recently, or is this like a...
July 3rd, I believe.
Okay, but it was this year.
Yes.
So what I would do, again, I'm just kind of giving you advice here. I would contact Y and show them the staff recommendations and ask them what, you know...
Well, we can modify or change?
Yes. What would work, they'll be able to know what would work and what wouldn't work.
But the easement, you don't know who I can talk to is what that easement would consist of?
Are you talking about the right-of-way?
Yes, the 40-foot right-of-way, a 40-foot half
right-of-way, which is typically measured from the center line.
That's what I was thinking. Is that just underground right-of-way? Is that another driveway? Is that another lane? Is that a turning lane? Is that a bicycle lane? What can they take there? If you approve that and I give them that, then what we just approved and what I just done is nothing, because they just took it.
That is not an underground easement. It is a right-of-way easement, which is on the ground.
Okay, that's what yeah, okay. I'll talk to Wild. If you want to continue it for me, I appreciate it.
Okay.
They're busy. Everybody's...
Understand. So, as you've heard repeatedly, August 25th is very busy. Is it going to inconvenience you too much if it's continued for 60 days?
No, I'd appreciate it.
Or do you need more time?
Well, I think that's good.
Okay.
We should be able to come up with that.
Okay, why don't we say we'll do 60 days. If you need more time, then we can certainly consider that.
Okay.
It doesn't look like anybody else seems to be interested from the neighborhood.
Right. So yeah, if the college isn't bucking me, I figure I'm good.
Okay, absolutely. All right, so Kathleen, do you have any comments about continuing this to, what did we say it is, September 29th?
29th, yeah, well, staff would have no objection to that, but staff would like to also comment about the sidewalks. That is a requirement now. And if she is wanting a waiver of that, then they would have to file a variance in order to have a waiver of the sidewalks, which staff would not support. I'll let you know that at point.
Okay, so do I talk to Kathleen about a waiver, or?
You would have to file a variance of development standards asking for a waiver of that sidewalk requirement, because that's in the ordinance.
Okay, I mean, there would be parts of National you could put sidewalk on, but there's one section there with the utility poles that I don't see how you could do it. But we can do that.
Okay.
So, September...
So I'm going to continue 2022 ZON 077 to the September 29th hearing with the understanding that that's going to give you time to check with Y or whomever you want to check with.
I will check with him this evening, and if I can't do it before then, I will let Kathleen know as soon as possible.
All right, that sounds good.
Okay, it's at 1 o'clock?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you all, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We now have a set of companion petitions, 2022 CAP 827 and 2022 CVR 827 at 8501, 8505, 8509, 8517, and 8609 West Washington Street. Approximate address is Wayne Township, Council District 22. Presently zoned I-2. Petitioner is Peterson Property Group, LLC, by Joseph D. Cauldron, requesting a modification of commitments related to rezoning petition 2018 ZON 137 to modify commitment 4 to terminate this commitment, which required specific perimeter fencing. To modify commitment 5 to terminate this commitment, which required compliance with the filed site plan filed with 2018 ZON 137 and replace it with a new commitment requiring compliance with the site plan submitted with this petition. Modifying commitment 6 to delete outdoor storage operation from the list of prohibited uses, and modifying commitment 7 to terminate this commitment, which required dedication of land for the future Vandalia Trail. Also requesting a variance of development standards of the Consolidated Zoning and Subdivision Ordinance to provide for a 105,000 square foot industrial building with parking totaling more than 10% of the front yard area. Parking limited to 10% of the front yard area. Located within the front transitional yard, not permitted, and to provide for outdoor storage of up to 1 acre, not permitted within 500 feet of the protected district. Would all those intending to testify for these petitions or about these petitions this afternoon, either for or against, please stand now and raise your right hand. We have only, okay, thank you, sir. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury to tell the truth and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you and good afternoon, Ms. Wurtzhall. Joe Calderon, 11 South Meridian, Indianapolis, representing the petitioner, Peterson Property Group, LLC. With me today on behalf of Peterson is Manish Gandhi, Senior Vice President and developer of this proposed project. So, Peterson is under contract with the airport to buy this ground, which is currently tax exempt, as you might guess. It's about 8.7 acres of vacant ground, believe it or not, between Perimeter Road, which is a private road, and West Washington Street. This property was rezoned to I-2. I think Murray Clark did it back at the end of 2018. And when we got a hold of this project, we originally filed a variance, and to our planner, Genesis credit, she sent us the commitments that were tendered in connection with the 2018 zoning case. So, what we did back when we got those commitments in April is we just kind of went through and said, well, this doesn't apply to our project, and we took a pretty big knife to it and cut out a lot of things. Needless to say, Councilor Evans, who's very involved with the Gateway Alliance folks that are kind of on a land use and beautification type of mission with respect to West Washington Street, we got together with them and we worked through the commitments in a face-to-face meeting, and we believe that we are in agreement with those groups as to what those commitments now look like. Now, to take you through the entire story, I've given you and Genesis a old-fashioned exhibit book. In case you didn't do a site visit, you can kind of turn to tab 1 and take a bird's eye view of the site. This vacant piece does have businesses on either side, and then there's a flurry of kind of scattered commercial activity across Washington Street on the north. If you turn to tab 2, you can kind of see what the zoning pattern's like, which is completely hodgepodge. It makes little sense and has a number of, quote, protected district designations, even though active businesses are operating thereon. And that is, in essence, what's triggering some of the variances here that we're asking for, which is just essentially limited to our proposed parking that fronts on Washington. Tab 3 is an indicator of what we would like to, tab 3 are the street photos that kind of take you around the site. And they are tabs 3A through H, and starts with the subject property, looks to the adjoiner, to the west, or to the east, then to the west, and then we hop across the street where you can see from the street level the commercial businesses that are operating on these, in some cases, protected districts. For example, 3D, that parcel with an auto sales and repair is Zone D3. I think there was a variance granted for that one, or it's grandfathered. And you can kind of see as we move to the west, the same exact thing occurring. We start with C7, and it's kind of the same owner and business, again, very auto intensive, and then they actually occupy an SU1 parcel and a D3 parcel. So in essence, there's nothing really to protect or buffer from properties across Washington Street. Nevertheless, we have to ask for a variance because the protected district requires a 100-foot setback for I-2, which we meet, but it's a transitional yard type of scenario in that we have some limitations in terms of how much parking we can have within that transitional yard. Tab 4 is the site plan that we filed. There is actually, this was the bare bones kind of, it does show dimensions. It shows that we meet the 100-foot setback. It shows the dimensions from Washington Street to perimeter. If you turn to tab 5, that gives you a better idea of what we're really going to do. And again, this is still a little conceptual, but I do want to point out that what we intend to do with that frontage along Washington Street is triple the amount of landscaping that's required for parking lot street frontage. 10 feet is the requirement. We've got 30. So even though we only have a double row of parking, which is allowed, we do exceed the 10% of the front yard requirement, which is the variance. But we're mitigating that through additional landscaping up front or along Washington Street. And the reason why we have our parking up front is essentially because the way the building is oriented, facing Washington Street, and then with the truck parking and docks in the rear or to the south, we want to separate as much as we can truck traffic and passenger vehicle traffic. In other words, staff's comments are essentially, well, you can move parking to the side, then you're really exposing that conflict between truck traffic and passenger vehicle traffic. And that's something that is not really good from a either a marketing or operational perspective in the industrial world. And that secondary suggestion is, well, just shrink the building and therefore you'll have more room to do it. And that's not really a very responsive comment to what we're proposing, which is a conforming building. We meet all setbacks, etc. What we're contending is that given the shape of the property, which is significantly wider than it is deep, that we do have a practical difficulty in meeting the ordinance. And it's further exacerbated by the fact that we have to meet these transitional yard requirements from properties that are operating businesses within protected districts across the street. Otherwise, I think we would probably not be talking too much about variances here. Tab 7, and this was something that we discussed with Councilor Evans and Lisa Bentley from the Gateway Alliance, are just, they want to know what kind of quality projects Peterson does. Peterson has developed a lot in Indianapolis. Castleton Business Park was the very first. They did, it's not Cross Point, the one at 96th and Precedent is the other major one. More recently, there's a couple of projects that kind of identify what projects they've worked on recently, what this project may look like in terms of quality, building massing, etc. You can see these two projects in tab 7. Tab 8 shows the existing or the 2018 commitments recorded in 2019 that were for a specific deal. And then what you can see in tab 9 is what we're proposing. And at the end of the day, we have subbed in the site plan that we propose, since it's different than the 2019 commitments. We do have a potential for outside storage, but that would be in a very limited circumstance. So we amended the commitment number 6, prohibited uses. And if we do outside storage, it would be as shown in tab 6. And you can see the outside storage would be against the building on the east side, heavily buffered through mounding, landscaping, and fencing, and limited to that particular type of arrangement. We did discuss and negotiate that with Councilor Evans and Ms. Bentley as well. So that's what outside storage might look like. It's not even guaranteed. We just want to have some flexibility if a tenant requires some limited amount of outside storage, which is allowed, again, in I-2. It's just the fact that we've got the protected districts across the street, which really are businesses. And then we did agree to insert back in the Vandalia Trail right-of-way grant. That's fine. We then negotiated the 2 new commitments, which are in tab 9, number 6 and 7, related to the limitations on what outside storage would be. And then finally, there was some concern that some businesses had experienced issues with theft and other things in some parts of the West Washington Street corridor. So what we agreed to do is kind of link up with IMPD with their kind of on-demand reporting system and license plate reader system. That was a specific request of Councilor Evans. So at the end of the day, we haven't taken away much of anything from the commitments, and we've actually added a couple as well. We hope that as we've walked through this project makes sense. There's no remonstrance whatsoever. Lisa Bentley's out till August 1st. Councilor Evans emailed me last week confirming that he's not opposed to the project. He was the one who originally requested a continuance a couple of months ago, as you might request. We've tried to kind of walk through some of these notions with staff. They don't agree with the parking variance, but we think that what we've done with the additional street frontage landscaping up front and the shape of the building and the desire to kind of not have passenger vehicles conflict with truck traffic on the sides, that it makes sense to grant the variance. Mr. Gandhi and I are here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Calderon. Do you have a letter from Councilor Evans or?
You know, I was on vacation last week, and I got back and emailed him and asked if he could provide a letter of support. I just don't have it.
Okay.
But I did ask for it. We did meet with him face to face, and
I know he, and I don't mean this to sound, I'm going to be careful the way I say this. I know that he isn't shy about expressing opposition. Let's put it that way.
Correct.
And I haven't seen anything to that effect, so.
No. Once we got together and walked through and understood his and Ms. Bentley's major priorities, we were able to really kind of get everything pulled together pretty quickly after that.
And do you have anything from her?
As I mentioned, her auto reply email said she was on vacation till August 1st.
Okay. Okay, and then no one else contacted you?
No, everything, there's, it's all essentially businesses out that way, so. Of course, the airport is in support of this since they signed the consent form.
Right. And then, so you withdrew the request to terminate the commitment about Vandalia Trail, is that right?
Yeah, we have that in our, in tab 9.
Yeah.
We have that back in.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And we kind of updated commitment 4 to say that any fencing would have to be decorative wrought iron style.
Right.
Versus just terminating that. So those were all the outcomes from our face-to-face with Councilor Evans and Ms. Bentley.
Okay. All right.
Thank
you. And is there anyone else in the audience that wanted to speak on the companion petitions 2022 CAP 827 and CVR 827 on West Washington Street? Okay. And Genesis, staff comments, please.
Thank you, Madam Hearing Examiner. As you are aware, staff is recommending denial of the requests before you. I'm happy that you two slightly discussed the proposed commitments that were submitted when I basically made an addendum to the staff report. So the blurb that is there, they have essentially modified some of the commitments within that instead of terminating them completely. So I would just like that to be stated. Firstly, the proposed modified commitments are similar to those filed with the initial rezoning in 2018. The modified commitments include dedication of right-of-way for the future of the Vandalia Trail and changes to provide fencing around the subject site. Staff is aware that the owner of the subject site has changed, however, feels that these slight changes to the original commitments kind of undermine the original rezoning in 2018, especially where these were agreed upon commitments by staff, by community members, by the council member in the original or with the original commitments in 2018. Additionally, the new proposed commitments to delete outdoor storage and operations from the list of prohibited uses would affect the surrounding lots, especially the ones that are considered protected. Although those are being used commercially for now, the comprehensive plan recommendation for those lots north of the subject site are recommended for, I believe it's village mixed use. So when staff is taking into consideration these protected districts, we also take into consideration the future land uses that could potentially go there. They are technically protected districts. Furthermore, we are definitely recommending denial of the termination of the outdoor storage and operations. Additionally, the proposed variance for the excessive front yard parking, especially encompassing over 10% of the front yard, we believe as staff that there is no practical difficulty for this. As you can see in the initial site plan that was submitted in 2018, which can be found on page 131 of the staff report. It displays that there is side parking and additionally would have access from Perimeter Road. I have been informed that access from Perimeter Road would not be able to be utilized. However, the site plan that was submitted still shows access from Perimeter Road. So the proposed site plan that was submitted with this modification. Again, staff believes there is no practical difficulty considering that the proposed site plan in the 2018 rezoning did show that there could be side parking instead of front parking. It's not necessarily a requirement that truck and passenger vehicle parking be separated. Additionally, we believe that what further kind of shows that there is no practical difficulty is that they could reduce the amount of parking that is provided to be in better compliance with the ordinance requirements, and also possibly decrease the size of the building in order to put parking in the rear or side yards. If Madam Hearing Examiner has any further questions, again, we are recommending denial. Thank you.
Thank you, Genesis. Were you contacted by any neighbors, neighborhood groups, council, or anything like that?
No, I wasn't contacted by anybody, but I do know that they have had discussions with Councilor Evans.
Okay. And again, he didn't provide you with any kind of email or anything like that?
No, he did not.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And Mr. Calderon, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal, please.
It'll take me 3 minutes to scoop back out from this. Just want to touch base on a couple of things. We are not adversely impacting the commitments in any way, shape, or form. We added back everything that we were asked to add back from Councilor Evans and Ms. Bentley, and we added to that. The only one, including the trail, by the way, the only one that even has a colorable claim of adversely impacting the commitments was the change to delete outdoor storage operation from the list. I don't know if that was outdoor only as a primary use or an accessory use. What we did, if you look at tab 9, number 6, is we completely rewrote the limitations of what we could do for storage. And that is going to be a heavily landscaped, bermed area that's not small. It's limited in terms of height. It's screened with landscaping, berming, and fencing. So we didn't just give ourselves license to store a bunch of stuff. It has to be limited per the revised commitment, which again has been presented to the folks that negotiated the original commitments in 2018. So we think that that's a reasonable request, and you can take a look and see what that might look like in tab 5. Now, 2 things regarding the variance request. And I'd like to just present these to you and to staff, just to make a couple of points related to practical difficulty. And these are all just provisions right from the ordinance. Just to remind ourselves what we're talking about here. If you look at the first page, which are the dimensional standards for industrial projects, I2 says, look, if you have a minimum front setback, it's either going to be a regular front setback measured from the right-of-way, 30 feet from the proposed right-of-way of a primary arterial, which would be Washington Street. But if you're a transitional yard, you've got to be a 100-foot setback. So the point of that is that the front yard is dictated by the fact that we've got these so-called protected districts across the street. And those are all businesses. So if those uses had matching zoning, we would have a 30-foot front yard requirement. We wouldn't have a variance because we wouldn't be parking in the front yard. And that is a practical difficulty, in my opinion. We can't help the fact that we've got these historic commercial uses across the street. The second page, which is highlighted, just talks about protected district, and with all due respect, Staff does not have an ability to leapfrog and say, well, it's comp plan village mixed use, we could therefore consider it to be a protected district even in the future. Protected district is a defined term which looks at the here and now in the zoning districts that are in play at that time. Mixed use isn't even a protected district anyway. So we think that because of these conditions that we didn't create, where you have businesses operating on non-conforming zoning classifications, does increase our front yard by 70 feet, and that creates a practical difficulty. Again, we're trying to mitigate that by tripling the amount of landscaping on Washington Street, and we simply can't shift parking to the sides just to meet the code and jeopardize a tenant's safety by having passenger vehicles and people walking across a driveway where trucks are coming in and out. That's just silly to meet code requirements for the heck of it. We think we do have a practical difficulty. We're not hurting anybody. We're enhancing the safety. We stand by our findings of fact, and we appreciate your positive recommendation today. Thank you.
Thank you. This, as with a lot of older locations in Marion County, this is an interesting mix of uses, and it makes it difficult when there is new development because in areas similar to this, you are faced with such situation where you have established businesses that might redevelop in the future to conform with their underlying zoning, but you know, we never know that for sure. And that does, I think there can be an argument that does create a hardship for redevelopment. Although I wish that we did have some kind of letter or email of comment of, you know, either not opposition or of support from both the counselor and the gateway, I respect what Mr. Calderon has said. I'm glad that there has been this discussion with them, and you know, it sounds like they have come to an agreement. This is this is a gateway to the city. This area has also changed because of the airport being moved. So I think the airport authority is careful about what is going to be proposed and what's going to be developed on property that they own, or property that would even be adjacent to what they own. You know, even though they've relocated out of the county, they certainly still care about what's going to go on in this part of the city. I think that the staff report is very well written. I think that Genesis explained the staff's position very well. I always respect the staff's position, and you know, as many of you know, I was a staff person for many years, so I do take I take staff recommendation very seriously and take that into account. There are always going to be situations where I am weighing the staff recommendation versus some other factors. This is one of those particular situations. I do think that because of the businesses that are in the area, that is a mitigating circumstance that would warrant some variances on the property. Because of the shape of the property, as Mr. Calderon mentioned, being wider than it is deep, that makes it a little more difficult to meet required transitional yard setbacks. I do think trying to keep the customer or employee parking separate from truck traffic is, is a good goal. So in this particular situation, given the modified commitments that are proposed and the modified site plan, along with the additional commitments that were agreed to by the discussions of, or the discussions with the counselor and the Gateway, in my opinion, the changes that have been made are supportable. I don't see this as undermining a rezoning that happened 4 years ago. Circumstances are always going to change, and while I think commitments are certainly important, modification of commitments are a vehicle to allow a development to be revisited. So for those reasons, I am going to recommend approval of 2022 CAP 827 and 2022 CVR. So 2022 CAP 827 will be heard by the Metropolitan Development Commission on August 17th, and I am going to and that will be subject to the revised commitments in this booklet. I'm not sure what the file date is in the file itself. And then I'm also going to grant 2022 CVR 827 subject to the site plan and subject to the findings of fact. Again, I appreciate all the comments that were made today and all the work that's been done on these. And have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Moving along, we have now two petitions, 2022 CZN 836 and 2022 CVR 836 amended at 4800 East Raymond Street, approximate address, Center Township, Council District 18. Petitioner is Continental Broadcast Group, LLC, by David E. Deering, requesting a rezoning of 15.41 acres from the SU5, D2, and DA-FW FF districts to the SU5 FW FF district to provide for a radio broadcast station. Also requesting a variance of development standards of this consolidated zoning and subdivision ordinance to provide for a 6-foot tall front yard fence, maximum of 3.5-foot tall fence permitted, with barbed wire not permitted. Will all those intending to testify speak about these petitions this afternoon, either for or against? Please stand now and come forward and raise your right hand to be sworn in at this time. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury to tell the truth and nothing but the truth? Say, I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Hearing Examiner, I'm David Deering, 921 East 86th Street, Suite 203 in Indianapolis. I'm here representing Continental Broadcasting on this petition. The property in question is located at 4800 East Raymond Street, comprises about 15.5 acres, including a radio broadcasting tower and accessory building which contains broadcast equipment. With me I have Mr. Bart Johnson, the general manager of the station, and the station agent Patrick McGrath. This property contains 3 different zoning districts. The accessory building and the broadcasting tower are in the SU5 district, which is for radio broadcasting towers and accessory buildings. Other parts of the property are zoned D2 or DA. Continental has been broadcasting from this location since the early 1950s, possibly earlier than that, decided that it was time to establish uniform zoning on the site. So we've petitioned to have the SU5 district extended so that it encompasses the entire property. We're also petitioning for a 6-foot fence along East Raymond Street, topped by barbed wire. Staff has recommended approval of the rezoning and the 6-foot fence, which we appreciate. Staff's approval is conditioned on substantial compliance with the site plan that's on file and with coating the fence with dark vinyl material, and we are in agreement, and we'll get dark vinyl material without slats, and we will make those commitments. So this would have been an expedited petition, but for a disagreement over the barbed wire. The zoning ordinance allows barbed wire only for livestock enclosures on ag land or for public facilities. Staff opposes the variance here, stating that the 6-foot fence should provide adequate protection for the station and the tower. However, I think there are good reasons for granting the variance in this instance. Even though this is not public property, in a sense it is a public facility because it involves radio broadcasting, and Congress has declared that radio broadcasting is the use of a public resource, namely the public airwaves. The FCC requires radio stations to air 24/7 and to make a certain number of public service announcements. The station could lose its license if intruders damage the equipment in the building or damage the broadcasting tower and knock the station off the air. So even though this setup doesn't fit the letter of the ordinance, it's consistent with the spirit of the ordinance in that it's a public resource. There have been several incidents of vandalism, illegal dumping, and attempted illegal entry into this property the last 18 months. The week of January 17th, 2021, Mr. McGrath at the rear of the property found a dumped sofa along with a substantial amount of cracked concrete, wood, pallets, and a vacant homeless encampment deep within the woods on the property. The maintenance company for the property also reported 2 loads of drywall dumped at the edge of the woods. September 27th, 2021, Mr. McGrath found a huge crack in the glass window at the front entrance of the building, a full 5-gallon bucket of assorted trash, and within 15 feet of the doorway, a T-shirt full of feces. The building sits much too far back from the road for any of this material to have resulted from someone throwing it from a passing car or walking by throwing it. So all of this material indicated that there were other unauthorized entries, probably several, to get all that material there, probably several unauthorized entries, including the attempt to break into the building. The police report for this incident is on pages 1 to 4 of the handout. January 21st of this year, there's a police report and a photo of more illegal dumping. That's pages 5 to 7 of the handout. April 25th of this year, an unknown empty pickup truck was seen parked in the driveway for unknown purposes. So a 6-foot fence alone is not sufficient to protect this property. I can get over a 6-foot fence. A lot of guys can climb over a 6-foot fence. Even guys that aren't 6 feet tall can get over a 6-foot fence. All they have to do is get a slight running start, jump, plant 1 foot against the face of the fence. At the same time, they reach up and grab the horizontal bar at the top, and from that position, you can boost yourself to the top of the fence, swing your legs over, and drop down on the other side. You might get your hands and wrists scraped up a little bit, but you wouldn't suffer any lasting damage. That's why when they wanted to protect the U.S. Supreme Court, they didn't put up a 6-foot fence, they put up an 8-foot fence. Now, in some situations, a 6-foot fence is a deterrent because it slows down the intruder, makes him more visible. Also, you make a noise when you crash up against the fence, which would draw attention. But here we have a quarter-mile stretch along Raymond Street that's got to be protected. That's a lot of distance, countless points where someone can enter the property, many places where someone can hide in the shadows. There's heavy industry to the west, so there's no reason why pedestrians would be walking past this site in the evening. There's going to be no pedestrians to see someone jumping the fence, no pedestrians to hear anyone crashing up against the fence. Directly across the street from this site, most of the property is occupied by a church. The church sits back from the road behind landscaping, and besides, there's no one in the church late at night. The few houses that are across the street from the property are located too far away to hear anything, and in the dark, certainly with someone skulking in the shadows, they're not going to be able to see an intruder. This is a very broad street. It's got 4 lanes plus turning lanes, so there's a considerable distance between those houses, those few houses across the street, and the property. Now, there are some properties in Indianapolis that have barbed wires for security, although they're not livestock enclosures and they're not, strictly speaking, public facilities. Pages 8 to 10 of our handout, the documents from case number 2020 UV2007, 2515 South Holt Road, Board 2 of the BZA on July 14th, 2020 unanimously approved barbed wire for a waste treatment facility, the waste treatment facility on Holt Road, both to protect the facility from damage from intruders and to protect intruders who might get into a waste facility and hurt themselves seriously. More to the point, on pages 11 to 12 of the handout are photographs of the property at 2231 to 2241 West 79th Street. Now, that's just south of the southeast corner of 79th Street and Township Line Road. That's where the iHeart radio transmitter is located. It's located on that property. Now, very similar to our situation, it's a very large property. Much of it is wooded, and there's a long stretch of Township Line Road, whereas we've got a quarter mile along Raymond Street. They've got about a fifth of a mile along Township Line Road. Now, I made those pictures last week. You can see their fence. That fence is, well, it's over 7.5 feet tall. It's a lot closer to 8 feet tall than it is to 7 feet tall. That's not counting the fence posts, not counting the 3 strands of barbed wire on top of it. So that's what they've got protecting the iHeart radio transmitter, a fence that's 1 to 1.5 feet higher than the one Continental's going to build, but they've still got barbed wire on top of it. They were still feeling that there was, on iHeart Radio's part, or their predecessor's part, that you needed the barbed wire on top of the almost 8-foot fence. So for all those reasons, I believe denial of the variance would impose a practical difficulty on the use of this property for radio broadcasting, in that it would expose it to likely vandalism and the likely possibility that the station would be knocked off the air. So we're asking for a 2-part recommendation from you. First, a recommendation of approval on the rezoning and the 6-foot fence, which staff supports, and second, a recommendation of approval for the barbed wire. And now Mr. Bart Johnson, the general manager, wants to speak briefly about, to give you some additional information about the security issues.
Hello, I'm Bart Johnson, 1800 North Meridian, Indianapolis, 46202. We have 3 radio stations in Indianapolis at 3 different sites. We own transmitters. This is the only one that I have trouble with, and I have trouble with it continuously. We've had break-ins. We've had the front glass shattered. The back has a very heavy metal door that's dented in from many attempts with rocks and bats to try to break that door down. As he said, there's been many times we've called the police for actual break-ins or attempted break-ins. It's an ongoing issue that we have. We've found needles and drug paraphernalia on the property. We've found what looks like discarded goods from robberies. The most disturbing, one time we found a small girl's clothing and underwear back there, and I don't even want to think about what happened there. But it's a terrible neighborhood, and we have a lot invested in this building. It's everything that keeps our station on the air and broadcasting. It's an historic building. It's actually where David Letterman began his broadcast career, and we have hopes to restore the building, but we can't put any more money into rebuilding that building until we can secure the perimeter of the property. So there is also something that I think that needs to be addressed, and that is on the property I have 4 broadcast towers. This is an AM transmitter. It's lethal as far as the electric current that flows through it. Anyone who touches a tower will not be injured, they will die. And so there is a real reason to put up not only a fence but barbed wire to keep people safe from entering our property and trying to climb a tower or clipping a guy wire which would cause a tower to fall. That's about all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. If you have any questions, we'll be glad to answer them.
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Johnson. Do you have any kind of security cameras?
We have installed cameras in the past, and for one reason or another, we've had issues with those, and they're not functioning right now. I have an app that I'm supposed to be able to monitor the cameras that doesn't seem to work. So the answer is we have cameras, but they're not functioning, and I've had those reinstalled since then as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Did anyone else want to speak on behalf of the petitioner? Okay, and I don't think there are any remonstrators, but just to make sure, for 4800 East Raymond Street? Okay. And Kathleen, staff comments, please.
Thank you, Judy. As you'll note from the staff report, staff is recommending approval of the rezoning, and will not spend time talking about that. Staff is also, and you understand it's rare that staff will support a 6-foot tall fence in the front yard. However, given the situation and the distance between this property and where that fence would be installed and adjacent property owners, staff believes that there would be a minimal impact on those surrounding properties. Staff also believes that that 6-foot tall chain link fence would provide the necessary and security that is requested for this site. Getting back to the barbed wire, which is the issue that is before us right now, staff believes that there are some other security measures that could be taken. For example, it just was mentioned, the security cameras, as well as personnel out there on the site. Staff would note also that if someone is intent on getting into that property, they can bring some cutters that would cut those wires, and they would be able to go over the fence regardless of whether there's barbed wire or not. So staff believes that there really isn't a practical difficulty here, because it's the 6-foot tall fence would provide the security that is needed. And again, the ordinance does permit it in certain situations. Now, there was a note made of the waste treatment there on Holt Road. Staff would argue that that is more of a public facility as opposed to this broadcasting, which is privately owned. But with that, again, staff is recommending approval of the rezoning, as well as the 6-foot tall fence in that front yard, but is recommending denial of the barbed wire, and would be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Kathleen. Were you contacted by neighbors, neighborhood group, anything like that?
No.
Okay,
not
thank
at all.
you. Okay. Mr. Deering, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal, please.
There was one neighbor that forwarded a letter endorsing the project. I forwarded that to Ms. Blackham. The waste facility on Holt Road, staff opposed that variance for barbed wire as well. As I said, Board 2 unanimously voted to allow the barbed wire. Significantly, staff has not identified any detriment that would result from the barbed wire. If the 6-foot fence would have only minimal impact on those other properties, then the barbed wire would only have minimal impact on those properties. So I see no reason not to grant the variance, because there's really no downside to having the barbed wire there. It can only help. As for, it's simply not economical for the station to staff that facility 24 hours a day. That simply wouldn't be viable economically. Cameras can always be disabled. Somebody throws a rock at them, knocks them out. Yes, a determined person could come out there with wire cutters, I guess, and cut through a fence. But I think these intrusions on the property, they're much more indicative of a sort of instantaneous decision. You know, it looks like we can get to this property. Let's go into it. I don't think the intruders sit down and strategize somewhere and come up with a plan as to how to breach the fence. But most importantly, there's been no detriment identified that would flow from the use of the barbed wire in this situation. Thank you.
Mr. Deering, is there any fencing on the property now?
There's some fencing immediately around the transmitting, the broadcasting tower, I believe.
Okay, but not the whole.
Right, but not around
okay.
the whole property. And again, this is 15.5 acres.
Okay. All right, thank you. And I guess, I'm sorry, I have one more question. So initially, you said that you were asking for approval of the rezoning and then approval of the 6-foot fence and then approval of the barbed wire fence. Were you saying that to ask me to recommend separately? Or
Yes,
do you want me to,
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. I thought that's where you were going, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, that was my
thank
intention.
you. Thank you. So, I agree with Kathleen's assessment that the variance that you cited, a wastewater treatment plant, is a public facility, and I you know, I'm not an attorney, but I don't agree with your argument about a radio tower being public property or a public facility. I understand you have the pictures from the radio towers at 79th and Township. I'm not sure that fence is legally established. And I know there are places in Marion County that have barbed wire that are not necessarily legally established. I just don't think there's a good argument for the barbed wire fence. I think it would be unsightly. It is not allowed by the ordinance, and you know, unless in very specific circumstances. So I am going to recommend approval of 2022 CZN 836. That will be heard by the Metropolitan Development Commission on August 17th. I guess I will then break 2022 CVR 836 into an A and B, with the A portion permitting the 6-foot tall front yard fence. I am going to recommend approval of 2022 CVR 836A, and that would be subject to the site plan, and then also to so these would be commitments for the rezoning, that the commitments listed in the staff report. The development of the site will be in substantial conformance with the site plan file dated May 4th, 2022. And then number 2, the chain link fence shall be coated in black, brown, or dark green vinyl and shall not include slats. And then I am going to recommend denial of 2022 CVR 836B, which would be for the barbed wire fence. So recommending denial of the barbed wire fence. And again, the rezoning petition will be heard by the Metropolitan Development Commission on August 17th. Thank you. Oh, yeah, and we may need amended findings of fact.
I believe that Mr. Deering submitted a finding of fact for the 6-foot-tall fence, and then earlier this week, he had findings of fact for the barbed wire.
Okay,
I wasn't aware of that, so she doesn't have that in front of her.
Yeah, I just have the one.
I have to come get it to her later.
Okay.
But then I would have to amend those. Right.
We
So
can
they would
deal,
have
we
to be
can
a
deal with
negative.
it at the next meeting, or after the meeting with Judy. We'll rewrite them.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you. And then I think we have one more petition.
We have a set of petitions, 2022 CAP 841 and 2022 CVR 841 at 5720 West 86th Street, approximate address, Pike Township, Council District 1, Dos Primos Capital Group, LLC, by Joseph D. Caldron, requesting a modification of commitments related to petition 2003 ZON 102 to modify commitment 5C to allow lot 2 to be split into 2 lots, resulting in 7 outlots. Previous commitment limited the number of outlots to 6. Also requesting a variance of development standards of the Consolidated Zoning and Subdivision Ordinance to provide for drive-through service unit and stacking spaces in the front yard along 86th Street not permitted. Will all those intending to testify on these petitions, either for or against, please stand now, raise your right hand to be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury to tell the truth and nothing but the truth? Say, I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, and good afternoon again. Ms. Wertz Hall, Joe Calderon, 11 South Meridian, Indianapolis. I'm representing the petitioner, Dos Primos Capital Group, who proposes to develop the former Macaroni Grill at Traders Point into a new concept coming to town called Slim Chickens. In connection with that, he proposes to do that on one part of the parcel and siphon off the other half of the parcel, which is a little more than 2 acres. With me today is Matt Gottsave and Steve Delaney, both of whom represent the franchisee and property owner in connection with this matter. This is Traders Point, as you know, or may recall, came to fruition in the early 2000s and was, what was then called a power center, with Marsh and Dick's Sporting Goods, theaters as major anchors. Obviously, retail has taken a bit of a transformation over the last few years. The Marsh is gone. Dick's is still there. This site was a Macaroni Grill and has been vacant now for almost 8 years, which is a really long time. So, in connection with that, first zoning approval done in 2002 or 2003, there was a commitment, overall commitment, not to have more than 6 outlots along 86th Street. This parcel still retained ownership by Kite, as little more than 2 acres, and we proposed to modify the commitment to allow it to be used for with 2 separate uses. This was a Pike Township negotiated commitment. We met with Pike Township, and they voted unanimously to support the lot split. In case you didn't drive by, and I'm sure you're pretty familiar with the site, you can look at tab 1 and see kind of the bird's eye view of the site in question. You can see it's a significantly large outlot as it exists today, and by splitting it in 2, you will still have 2 very developable parcels. And, from the retail perspective, to have two uses versus one these days is beneficial, and the Pike Township folks agree with that. If you turn to tab 2, and this kind of gets into the real issue in play here is how we manage the drive-through. And the fact of the matter is that, let me have you turn to tab 3 first, and that's the proposed site plan. This is oriented south to north, north being at the top, and you can see kind of outside the parcel lines the entry drive from 86th Street, which is to the south, entry drive, and then the main access drive that kind of splits the main shopping center from the outlots that goes along the north side of this parcel and runs in an east-west fashion. What I want you to pay attention to is the fact that the only access to this property is off of that north entry drive. There's no direct access from 86th Street, and there's no direct access from the main north-south entry drive that's just to the west. So you have to turn onto the east-west access drive in order to access this parcel, which kind of dictates the circulation pattern and the layout of the site from a coming in and making it convenient for your customers, both for those that dine in and those that would like to go use the drive-through service. The only way to have proper circulation with the counterclockwise flow and the driver's side being the pickup side is to route it around south and then to the east and then to the north. So that is driving a lot of what our quote variance request is, which doesn't like these days having the drive-through elements in the front yard between a street over 30 feet in width, which is 86th Street, and in the building. Now, if you'll turn to tab 2, you'll see a couple of things that we think are pretty important here. And these are pictures that I took, so they're probably a little crooked. But the point of it is, these are taken at grade from the parking lot of the Macaroni Grill parcel, the parcel in question, facing towards 86th Street. And we're below grade. It's a pretty significant mound. As you can see, you can barely see the tops of traffic that's going by in these first two photos. You can take a little bit different angle on the next page, looking back to the east, and you can see the mound, you can see the vacant building in a couple of photos. And then I took a couple of shots essentially from the sidewalk area on 86th Street, and you can kind of see the grade differential between the mound, landscape mound, and 86th Street. And then, of course, on the other side, as it dips back down, that's where you have the subject property. So we think that the existing conditions are conducive to waiving or to granting a variance to allow for the stacking and ordering element to be between the building and 86th Street. Now, to be fair, we did tender a landscaping plan which shows significant landscaping along the 86th Street frontage, and it was supposed to have been in this booklet, and I apologize. Is it tab 4? Oh, I must have the old one. This is the one we presented to Pike Township. I apologize. Tab 4. So please turn to tab 4, and you can see the supplemental landscaping that will be added along the 86th Street frontage. This was only topic of discussion that we have with Pike Township in terms of making sure that we weren't creating something that was either unsafe or unsightly. And all the plantings that you can see along the 86th Street frontage are new plantings, and the other ones are going to remain in place. So this is going to be a significant landscaping effort along 86th Street, which will do two things. One, it's going to further protect the drive-through traffic from having any sort of possibility of light spill, which we don't think is possible given the grade change anyway, but this will further mitigate it, and it will further beautify the 86th Street streetscape for this particular property. This project will be a fantastic addition, again getting rid of a vacant building that's sat there unused for some time. In tab 5 you can kind of see a couple of prototypes. The bottom prototype is going to be, to my understanding, the one used with kind of the outdoor dining area in front or on the south side of the building, and in that area between the order board and the outdoor dining area will also be landscaped as well. Just from a point of perspective, if you're familiar with the McDonald's that was just done at 86th and Ditch within the last year, the exact same variance was requested and granted by, not by you, but by the BZA under almost the same circumstances, in that there's a grade change where the McDonald's sits lower and there was significant landscaping at the street level, which mitigated, in all fairness, what is a fair reason to adopt an ordinance restriction, and that is to protect the public health and safety. In this particular case, given the circumstances, the existing conditions, with everything being set so far back from 86, grade change, mound, additional landscaping, we don't believe there will be any potential adverse effect on the public health safety. Certainly no effect on our neighbors. Pike Township supports this, and we think that there's a practical difficulty in the fact that we have to enter this property from the north, which kind of forces the circulation pattern. I know that our planner pointed out a couple of nearby uses that have apparently compliant drive-through. We looked at the Taco Bell across the street, which is tab 7. You can see the difference there is that they actually have access right after you get off of 86th Street, as well as from the other side. So there's an opportunity to reorient the whole stacking scenario that's different than the subject property. If you look at the Wendy's, which is just to the east at Traders Point, they have direct access off of 86th Street as well. So it's a totally different circumstance in that case. And I think Keith also pointed out the Starbucks just to the east as well. And that's part of a multi-tenant building, so their stacking has to be outside of the front of the building and wrapped around. It's not a pure freestanding drive-through type of operation. Plus, they actually have access on the south side of the building. You don't have to access it from the north the way the subject property is only accessed from. So we do think that while Keith was right in pointing to those uses, that they are substantially different in terms of the access to those parcels compared to this one. Did you guys have anything you wanted to add, or have we covered it? Covered pretty well. Okay. I think that will conclude our presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Calderon, I do have a question. And just as a heads up, your site plan,
It was upside down.
yes, on tab 3, but
Yes.
right side up on tab 4. So, so would the front of the building still face 86th Street?
The front of the building faces 86th Street.
Okay.
So if you flip that site plan right side up, if you will, and I apologize, the access drive is to the north.
Right.
And the building orientation is to where the front of it is facing 86th Street. I think the entrance to the building is offset.
Correct. The entrance is off the road that comes off of 86th Street.
To the building, not to the site.
Correct, to the building, correct. So it faces west.
So under tab 5, where you have a picture of a couple of different locations, I guess.
Yeah.
And you said the lower picture is probably what it would look like from 86th Street, is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. All right.
So obviously you could go from the dining room to the outside area. So the architectural feature with the gabled roof faces 86th Street.
Okay. All right, thank you. And Keith, staff comments, please.
Yes. As was mentioned, this is a two-part petition. One is the approval petition to divide the outlot into two. And staff's only concern is that if you continue to divide up outlots, at some point you may have a leftover piece that's not very developable. That does not appear to be the case here. The other part of this petition is the variance to allow drive-through service units in the front yard of a building. In this case, as Mr. Calderon said, there is a berm between 86th Street and the proposed restaurant. And they have offered a landscape plan showing extra landscaping on that, which staff greatly appreciates. Because one of the main reasons for this provision in the ordinance is for the aesthetics of the streetscape. Another very important reason for it is pedestrian safety. And we want there to be a very clear and safe way for pedestrians to get from the street to the proposed restaurant. On this site, to do that, well, first, there's not very good pedestrian access to the site or to this new outlot. You basically have to go to the east and then come across the what will be the west new out or the east new outlot to get to the west new outlot, and then cross 3 lanes, 2 order lanes and 1 bypass lane. It feels like there is certainly some way this could be designed so that that situation could be mitigated. And in fact, I think that in the petitioner's exhibit under tab 5, where you see the 2 prototypes, that you see that drives and the drive-through units could be brought around to the side of the building. There's really, well, let me step back. As you'll notice in the other drive-throughs in the area, they don't have drive-through units in the front yard. whether or not they have one or more entrances to the lot seems beside the point to me. You still have a circulation pattern going around the building, whether there's 2 access points to that circle or not. In fact, by only having one, this is actually simplified. So you see in none of the drive-throughs in the immediate area have these drive-through units in the front yard. Obviously, it can be done. There's clearly no hardship here because there's plenty of examples of how it can be done. It appears that the only reason for this request is the petitioner's desire to have a certain prototype used here. But there's no practical difficulty under the ordinance. It's their preference. It's the hardship that they've created on their own. Staff believes that this site could be redesigned to meet the ordinance. Now, it may be that the site needs to be a little bit wider, but fortunately, they've got the width to do it because they've got the large outlot that they're dividing. So staff does recommend denial of this petition because we believe there's no practical difficulty and that the site can be redesigned to meet the ordinance. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, and I have seen the letter from Pike Township Residents Association with today's date, stating that their board of directors on July 13th, 2022 voted unanimously to support this petition with the attached site and landscape plans. Keith, did you receive phone calls or emails from anyone about this petition?
The only contact that's been made is the letter from PTRA that came in at 12:03 today.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Calderon, I guess I'm curious, were there other configurations attempted for this site?
I'm going to have Matt Godsave,
sure.
Who is intimately familiar, come up and testify. State your name and podium.
Matt Godsave. So we've been working with Y Engineering and the architect to make additional revisions. We've actually gone through, I think, 7 different revisions on this site. We do have other sites where we have done, off the back of the road, but based on the access stacking concerns that we have, this was truly the best solution. In addition, what we looked at for the layout that we're proposing here is not only looking at it when we say aesthetics, coming off 86th Street onto the main street coming into the park. What we wanted to do was put the front of the entrance of the store on that side in lieu of having a pickup window. A little bit more inviting. The township also agreed with that approach. We did explain, multiple different revisions of how we could have put the, the stacking or the actual drive-through ordering on the north side of the plan. If we did do that, what we would be, I guess, facing would be you would have a multiple, if we kept the drive-through pickup window the same side, or actually you would have to put it on the opposite side of the building. You would actually come in, you would loop the building, order, pick up, loop again to go back out. So you would actually do 2 loops for ordering. therefore actually increasing, to me, when we look at a safety aspect, we're actually creating more of a vehicular concern by looping the building multiple times. In addition, me looking at the site and working with the civil engineer and architect, by having, I understand, aesthetics, I understand concerns of, maybe having a sidewalk off 86th Street getting to the site. To me, this is a little bit different development because north of here, what do we have? We have a theater, we have other shopping. We're going to get a lot of traffic, probably walking traffic from that point down, not crossing what I'm going to say, ordering, concerns or crossing lanes where people are ordering. I've been on multiple other sites where they've had this configuration. I haven't seen any concerns. And as I mentioned, this is probably the most cleanest, most aesthetically pleasing, as well as safest approach that I believe that we could provide with a one entrance, to this layout.
I didn't understand the double loop. Can you repeat that?
Yes. So if we were to put the drive-through ordering on the north side, what we would do is we would have to shift the building down because we looked at this. If we did that, then what we would have is we would put the front door to the building on the east side of the building, drive-through pickup on the west side. So when you come in, you would have to loop counterclockwise around the building, order, come to the drive-through window, pick up, loop around again to get out. So you would actually do 2 loops to order and get out. Because you would not be able to make a come off the north drive directly into a drive-through. If we did do that, then there would be concerns with stacking out on that north drive.
Okay, I see that, yeah.
So for representing corporate and looking at how corporate looks at sites with the stacking plans, this proved to be the most acceptable solution. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, and I'm sorry, could you please give your address, please?
Address?
Did you fill out a slip?
No, I got to get it. If you fill, either that or fill out a slip, please.
Address 8888 Keystone Crossing, Suite 1000. Thank you.
Thank you.
And how do you spell your last name?
It's Godsave, just like it
Oh,
sounds.
great.
God
Thank
save.
you. Great, thank you. And Mr. Conan, I guess I have one more question. Did your client look at having a wider lot, as Mr. Holsworth suggested?
A wider lot?
A wider, yeah, so taking...
And flipping the building so that it's oriented the other way? I'd have to ask Mr. Godsave to testify to that.
We had looked at that opportunity, but based on the need or the size of other locations, the only thing we could have done, I guess, we could have turned the building opposite way, but then we wouldn't have the correct parking allocations. And based on the lot split, if we encroached very much more to the east, we wouldn't have a marketable lot. And we would have had way too much green space for, I'm going to say, this project and for this deal. Therefore, not making sense to, I guess, move forward with.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And my suggestion was actually not to turn the building 90 degrees, but would be to bring the ordering unit around to the west side. Pickup could still be on the east, but you would get rid of those 3 lanes to the front, to the south of the building. Now that might bump the property line over 20 feet to accommodate that.
Okay, gotcha.
That was what I meant by widening
Okay,
it out.
understand. Thank you for clarifying that. And Mr. Calderon, I kind of lost track here. Were you done with your rebuttal?
I think that answering your questions pretty much does that. We just want to emphasize a couple of things, unless either of you have anything else you want to say. But in conclusion, that we appreciate Keith doing his homework on the other drive-throughs. We do see and believe that it's a significant difference when you can access a drive-through directly off of 86th Street or shortly thereafter versus coming in all the way on the north side. We're limited to one access point, which kind of drives the orientation. The double loop scenario that Mr. Godsave presented to you is increasing cars rotating around the site and potential conflicts between those cars and folks that are going to do indoor dining. And there is a robust indoor dining. This is not strictly a drive-through type of scenario. We know that there's existing sidewalks along 86th Street and an existing sidewalk that punches through to this site. So we do think that there is adequate access for folks to access the site that aren't necessarily in a car, that might be on a bike or walking on 86th Street. But as was testified, most of the action in this center is to the north anyway, so we don't see that 86th Street is going to be a primary point of pedestrian access.
Okay.
And we do believe that the existing conditions and the landscaping mitigate any public safety concerns with 86th Street traffic, headlights, and conflicts with the subject property.
Okay, with that said, though, staff had requested a commitment in the staff report. If I did recommend approval for direct pedestrian access, are you in agreement with that? So direct pedestrian access from 86th Street to any primary building on the site shall be provided. The direct access shall take the form of a sidewalk or where the pedestrian access crosses a vehicular drive, painted markings shall delineate the pathway.
Yeah, we'll agree with that.
Okay. All right. Again, I appreciate the staff's recommendation on this. To me, this does seem like it is slightly different than the other restaurants with drive-throughs in the area. I agree with Keith that for any pedestrians that might be coming from 86th Street, they're really going to need to pay attention to what's going on. So I think that there will need to be some significant markings, speed bumps, whatever, to make sure that happens. On the other hand, to me, it seems like the best flow for the site is with the proposal. So, and given the fact that there will be additional landscaping along 86th Street, along with the difference in grade that's existing now, I am going to recommend approval of 2022 CAP 841, subject to the commitment listed in the written staff report. I'm going to grant 2022 CVR 841, subject to the site plan and the findings of fact. And the approved petition will be heard by the Metropolitan Development Commission on August 17th. And again, I appreciate your comments today.
Thank you.
Thank
Point
you.
of just question for maybe Keith and you. Since I'm already modifying the existing commitments, can I add the requested commitment to that statement, Keith? Or do you want it separately on a BZA commitment?
Yeah, we would rather have it be all one document than...
On the statement, on the modification of commitment, so just add that to that. Okay.
That makes sense to me.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other business today? All right, we are adjourned.